Hello, hello. I'm here today with my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles booster set box opening video. This set is out, it is released, it has been for like a week or so now. You can find it in your local game stores. So, if you haven't seen any of these cards yet, we'll hold up some of the cooler ones for the camera, but rather than do sort of the, just look at cards box openings, I like to kind of talk about a card from each pack, sort of strategy-wise, or something I think is interesting, or that could be pretty good, or, maybe occasionally a card I'm a little peeved about, or something like that. Yeah, just a different way to go through a box, and, obviously if we get any really cool alts or whatnot, we'll put that in front of the camera. I do not have a UV light thing to really look at the slime cards, but we'll probably see one or two of those in here. So yeah, we'll be here for a little bit, so we'll just get this underway. First and foremost, if you are not familiar, these inserts here with the Get Started QR code, the backside of this is where you find the redemption code for the loyalty shop. You can go to play.uvsgames.com, go to your profile page, your rewards, there's a little link to enter a code there. It is not this little code on the flap of the box, which I tried to do a few times. It's actually on the back of that insert. Just go ahead and start ripping packs. We're not going to be able to fit too much cards on display just sort of hanging out on the camera, but we'll get these packs out to the side. Now let's see what we get. So I have opened, a fair number of packs myself for this so far, and I'm definitely looking for some ultra rares still. This first pack has Knockout Punch as the rare. Let's hold these flatter to the camera here. Alright, so which of these is kind of fun to talk about here? This set has quite a few distinct cards in it that are kind of like a little bit differently shaped. Let's see. I'm kind of talking about Knockout Punch itself, actually, I think. So yeah, so Knockout Punch, this is a pretty neat one. It's a 3-5, which is an acceptable stat line, Fury Punch. Certainly there's a bunch of stuff on fire symbol characters that cares about Fury, so it's relevant there. And it has this little burn on hit. It doesn't have to deal full damage, so this is better than raw +1 damage, because if they partial block it, they still just burn 1 for each card in their card pool. That doesn't quite feel fire themed in the sense that usually it's water that's putting a bunch of cards in their card pool. But, even if you're not expressly stuffing their pool, somewhat late in the string, you'll usually have like a couple cards in there, so this is sort of a pseudo 3-7 kind of thing on a 4-diff, which is a pretty nice stat line. I think this is a perfectly reasonable card. I don't know if you'll see too many decks trying to build around this in any way. It is a 3-speed low, which isn't that hard to block necessarily, but could be a good role player in some Fire Fury themed decks, I think. Pack 2, and if you're new to Universus, what the normal pull rates in a given booster box, you're typically going to get about 6 ultra rares, 1 secret, and like 2 or 3 alts of varying varieties. There's like alt characters, there's alt ultra rares, alt secret rares, that sort of thing. We have April. This is Scaling Heights on here. Got a Belly Bump, So Many Regrets, and Kamikaze Robots. I've been thinking about this. I was thinking about this a little bit the other day. This isn't necessarily going to be a super positive thing, but let's talk about Kamikaze Robots a little bit. So this set, the Void symbol, has this little Mechazoid theme going on, where there's a fair number of ways to go get a bunch of Mechazoids into your stage, and this allows you to play one of them as a 2-speed 2, and this is supposed to be one of the payoffs for collecting all these Mechazoids. It has to be a ready copy, so you don't get to use... We'll see a Mechazoid at some point here. You don't get to use this little commit effect first. And... honestly, a 2-card combo to get 2 mid-2 is really not that great. I think if you were Donatello and you're putting a bunch of damage on all of them, you could maybe get somewhere with this, but you need a couple copies. You want to play like a string of these 2 mid-2s. It is free. You don't have to pass a check. It is, errata to clarify that this is an attack you are going to get. It's going to go on the attack stat. You can put some buffs on it. So, it's not the worst. It just feels like it's maybe one piece short of being... a full package that could go somewhere if you sort of look at all the things that deal with Mechazoids. I was looking for ways to unflip this and couldn't find any, but it is neat that a card like this exists, and you can play around with it a little bit. It's just a little hard to pull together right now. And I don't know if even changing the stat line on that would have made it any better. Like, even if that makes it a 3 mid 3, I don't think it would have helped that much. Smash through. We talk about smash through. I kind of like that one a little bit. Rocksteady. Code edits. Never mind. We should talk about code edits. You're going to see code edits a lot. Yeah, expect to see this a lot. So the fact that it's treated as an asset is nice for some things that might count that, but I think a lot of decks are just going to play this as a 1x, 2x. You might see a lot of decks running 1 code edits and 1 Nonagon main, but we're at the stage where there are plenty of blitz abilities worth canceling. It's very unlikely that you're going to face any decks that don't have blitzes on their attacks. And generally, one of them is worth flipping a 3-5 to cancel. Nonagon blows itself up, which is a bit of a steeper cost. There can be matchups where that's just not really worth it. Code Edits is probably always going to be good. So if you're going to run more copies of one or the other, I think I'd favor Code Edits. But this is a big one to watch out for in this set. This is probably going to be one of the more played cards out of this set, I would say. Especially since, the Void symbol is in the Critical Role set. There are some characters with the Void symbol that are good and see play, so should see plenty of code edits. Alright, pack 3 here. So smash through again. More Singing Fish. We're going to see most of these commons a number of times. Hey, here's Donatello. Tongue Snatch. The Wall Kick. Don't use that word, and Too Slow. Which one is Tongue Snatch? I don't even fully remember this one. Kind of a wacky throw. We should talk about Donnie. So, character rarity is back in this set, so the turtles themselves are quote-unquote rare characters. You're a little less likely to see them than other ones, so this is probably only Donatello we'll see in this box. And not every box is necessarily going to have every turtle in it. But I think a lot of people believe that Donatello is, if not the best character in the set, then, maybe number 2 or number 1A with, I think, Leatherhead's pretty popular. And there's a couple people looking at, like, Splinter and April and trying to make things work, too. But, yeah, scaling damage for each asset in your stage. We saw code edits. There's another foundation that also counts as an asset. You could do Mechazoid stuff. It's probably not worth it, but those technically count as assets as well. And the build on block with an asset. There's reasons to build him off either of these symbols. Void has the best generic assets, but Good has some that are meta-dependent, could be more exciting than the Void ones. But 7 hand size that will eventually give all of his moves plus 4, 5, 6, 7 damage is a really good starting point, and about as much as you can ask for from a 7 hand size character. You'll need to figure out how to land things, of course. All the caveats with just putting damage on things apply, but certainly a character that you could see doing well at events. Heel kick. I don't think we've seen any ultra rares yet. This might be our first one here. Here's April. Here's Rebuilt Forces. That's kind of an interesting one. The horns. Young and Free. I think we'll see another Young and Free at some point. We do like that one, but you're not going to see another Rebuilt Forces. This is an intriguing card. So it's an Evo tuned, and if you can find a backup with the difficulty 3 or less that is really good for having, just for being out 1 turn, this kind of lets you do some of the kinds of stuff that Hunter's Ally lets you do on a different symbol. Granted, it's temporary and it can't get a foundation and etc, etc. But you don't need to worry about the keywords on your backups for what it's worth. Not every backup is an ally, although a lot of them are. And yeah, just gives access to that sort of line to different characters. I could imagine, let's see, I believe Genghis Frog is a 5 diff, so he doesn't apply. But you could see some decks that would really like to Hunter's Ally for a certain thing, but they can't play it. Maybe playing Rebuilt Forces instead. And this is going to be one of those cards that every set that comes out, you're going to want to check those 3 difficulty backups and see if there's anything really cool to build with this. So I think this is one of the more relevant ultra rares, even if it may or may not, make a splash immediately. It might take a little time. I don't remember if that's one of the ones I still needed more copies of or not. think it's not. Holding all the cards. Air, some pizza, bunch of commons. Rocksteady, Mikey's Nunchaku. Daredevil. Fleeing Danger. And Grip of Cruelty. Alright, we should take a chance to talk about Fleeing Danger. This is another one you should probably expect to see a fair bit. So, this is technically a little less strong than Keiko's Aid in the sense that if they only want to play one more attack on their turn, doesn't quite give them as much difficulty, but it does add difficulty to their ability to build foundations after. So even then it's kind of better. Just kind of breaker one-ing them for the whole turn effectively. You do need to completely block an attack. It doesn't work on partial block. But, for all the same reasons that Keiko's Aid sees play, I would totally expect Fleeing Danger to see a fair amount of play. So, Water probably less popular of a symbol than Void, so I don't know if it's going to show up in as many decks as Code Edits does, but I think most decks with Water that want to play some defense will have some interest in that card. Especially if you're worried about ponies or Mikasas or that sort of thing. Alright, so commons here. Leo's Katana, which is the pre-release card. Alright, what do we have here that'd be cool to talk about? I kind of like this one here. Yeah, but could talk about Leatherhead, but I kind of like this guy. This Misguided Big Brother. So obviously it wants you to have a bit of an ally theme, ally attack theme kind of thing, but I'm someone that advocates for playing a card called Murderous Escalation, which is a 2/5 foundation that commits for +3 damage. If you can flip for +3 damage, that's even better. Granted, you only get to do that once, but in a lot of cases, that's all you really need. And so yeah, if you're on a deck that's kind of doing the ally thing and isn't really sure about its damage output, go ahead and try tossing some of these in. I know it's not very sexy to have a foundation that's just like, oh, why just add damage? But damage is how you win the game at the end of the day. And, being able to, as the game goes on, find a couple foundations that can be worth an entire extra attack. If you get 2 of these, it's +6 damage, right? We're happy to play foundations that just draw a card that have like a 1 in 3 chance of being an extra attack. So it's not really bad rate at all. It's got a nice +2 block. It is mid, so it's not going to help with your off-zone blocking, but I'll be interesting to see, how much that one shows up, in some competitive decks. Again, symbols with this set are an ongoing conversation. Right now, the pool of popular characters, not too many of them are even going to have the evil symbol because of the way they've done these things. So another one that may take some time to marinate before we start really seeing it, but a pretty good one, I think. All right. Let's Bebop. Teamwork Attack. Long version. Machine Mayhem. Another Kamikaze Robots. I should talk about Singing Fish because I got rused by this card when I first read it. I was like, what the hell are they doing? So this card reads like an old MHA card called Destined for Mainstream Success. It is not quite exactly that. The important thing to note here is this Otherwise clause, where you put it on the bottom of your deck. So Destin did not have that. It was just name a card type, reveal the top card. If it matches, it adds to your hand. If it didn't match, it stayed there. So you could name attack every time and either put an attack in your hand or scout a 5 on top of your deck, was sort of the idea. This way, you do not get that scout fallback. If it doesn't match, it just goes to the bottom of your deck and you still don't really know what your next check was unless you have some way to mess with bottom cards of your decks, which I think there's like 1 or 2 in standard, but nothing that, commonly played. But nonetheless, a 1/5 flip to, especially if you can stack your deck in some way, this card will see play and that sort of thing. And, people are pretty happy to flip to draw a card. So if your deck's, really heavy on foundations, full like 2/3 foundation set deck, people might play this just to try to draw a foundation and, see what's up. Plays nice with, I believe I'm going to check this right now. I'm going to look at my backups. I'm hoping... No, Rayflay is not the backup that scouts the top of the deck. That would have been Thematic. Which one does that? One of these backups just like repeatedly scouts Scumbug. So if you have Scumbug, and you can put Scumbug and Rayflay in the same deck, then Scumbug and Singing Fish rather in the same deck, then that's a bit of a combo there. Sorry, went on a tangent and just put black on the screen. Smash through cohort. Break wall, disintegrate, totally not. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. I have not actually gotten a Chrome in any of my box openings until now, I believe. Heck yeah. This might be the second Chrome I've ever opened. Oh, Michelangelo too. This is I like this character. We should talk about Michelangelo and put this pretty Chrome on the screen. Number 77, pretty good number. So, kick, pizza, and punch attacks get speed after they block, which is a weird sideways ways to give your attack speed. This is really a guy that kind of wants to like poke and prod and play like 2 attacks a turn and then come back and defend himself, which is a way that I really like to play the game. You know, whether or not it's a viable strategy in any given format can vary, but he does have, you know, a nice 23 health to go with the 7 hand size, so I think there will be a meta at some point where this Michelangelo is good, even if it's not literally right now. Because, you know, on their turn, just sending their best foundation back to their hand and make them either replay it or not have it on offense is pretty effective, as well as picking up a choice block yourself. You could imagine, you know, a deck that's maybe making some face down foundations or has a bunch of, you know, special blocks of different kinds that it can go pick up from its stage. Could be pretty good. I haven't really thought about what a Michelangelo deck would look like really at all right yet, but he is a very interesting character. I feel like I'm going to build him at some point, and maybe we'll build him with this Chrome. I did not prepare sleep, so we're just going to put this... Actually, we're just going to... This guy's just going to hang out up here. That seems like a reasonable thing to be doing. This pack has other cards in it, but we don't care. Very, very cool. All right. I'll say I am a bit of a Debbie Downer when it comes to Chromes and the fact that they seem to be capped out on 2 colors of these things, but they are getting better and better with what they're doing with those 2 color treatments, right? We got all of Michelangelo's distinct oranges on that. Got the gold stamp, which is cool. I think they did that with like signatures on some of the Critical Role ones. So it is a very nice looking card. You know, I would like to see more full color for our highest rarities, but still very, very nice looking just as an item in and of itself. All right, moving on. We're not going to top that one here. Maybe we'll see some other cool alt characters or something like that. The Raphael. Charismatic approach. Oh, so many regrets. And extra supplies, another one of those treat as assets card. I'll talk about this a little bit. I'm not really a fan of this card. A lot of people really went crazy when this was revealed, because committing your assets to pass a check, if it's like printed on a character, is kind of a crazy ability. If you build a deck knowing that all of your assets are going to be foundations, you can do a lot of things with that, but in this case, you only get to do it for 1 check. And that can be a check that, you know, changes the outcome of a game for sure, but you don't really get to build your deck around the fact the way you do if it's printed on a character, which has been on some characters that have gotten, I want to say, almost consistently errata. Pretty much every your assets help you pass checks characters that's ever been printed has gotten some kind of an errata, aside from one Bishamon character. But you don't get to just like play blank whatever assets, you know, the way you do in those kind of decks just because you have extra supplies in this list. So what that means is when you do this, yeah, you can commit assets to pass your check. All right, cool. Go ahead and commit your Cape, your Psychic Spirit Glass, your, you know, not vertical maneuvering equipment anymore, but all these like good assets you're playing in your deck because they're good cards. Committing those to pass check is not nearly as exciting. So, you know, maybe asset theme decks run a copy or 2 of this to bail themselves out and to just like increase their asset count, because it does count itself as an asset, which is neat. But, you know, I don't know if it's the showstopper. The public reaction to the reveal made it sound like it might be. All right. Something cunning, Ritual's plans, Mega Mutant, Destructive Entrance, Bring Me Stockmans, Wipe Out All Humans, Spin Crescent Kick. What did I wipe out? I was looking at this card earlier today too. Another Evil Attuned card, so still interesting. So this kind of is, another one. It's not very sexy. It's just, oh, okay, it's going to give your attacks +2 damage for the turn. But again, damage is how you win games. And you could imagine a character, on this evil symbol that if they're damage challenged, having this sit in your card pool, not add to progressive, and just give everything +2 damage is, not entirely unlike City Rampage, which people go crazy about playing. Instead of adding 1 to your check and giving 1/1 speed, it just gives +2 damage and doesn't count towards your check, so the statistical buffing is not quite as big. It does also give you a -2, an effective +2 speed the first time your opponent tries to block, which is cool. But it also doesn't force you to play a bunch of high diff attacks. You could play this in a deck that's just running a bunch of 4 difficulty, whatever moves, like a normal difficulty. Or if you play this in a Hawks, just make your feathers even bigger kind of deal. And so it's got some interesting use cases. Again, another one where I'm not sure, when or if it will ever quite, crack a competitive top cut or something like this, but you could see this, filling the damage role for a character that doesn't otherwise have it. One of the fabrics of our meta right now is that it's really hard to find stats, particularly offensive stats, without them when they're not on your character. Just the foundation and asset and etc. based sources of those stats are not that great right now compared to where they've been in times past. So it puts a lot of pressure on your character, and it's nice to see, Wipe Out All Humans giving people a way to make all their moves bigger for a turn as if it was a character level ability, at the cost of putting this no block action in your deck, right? But made me think about, look at Superfly at least a little bit. Clumsy Entrance is a funny one. Alright, which of these is cool? We're in the back half of the pack, so we're kind of okay to talk about commons a little bit more. Let's see. This is kind of neat. This Growing Up Fighting card. So this is an ally. We were talking about ally themed decks a little bit earlier, although I don't know how many good and evil characters there are that aren't Hawks. There might be some out there, but this is a cool blitz. People got some work done with Dangerous Gambit building assets out of their card pool, and now you can do that with Foundations too. We haven't had a card like this since MHA Set 1 was legal, and that card was very, very popular, for reasons besides exactly what it did, but this doesn't have any combos going on. It's just a 4/4, has powerful 2, gives you momentum spend, has the high block. Again, the symbol might get in the way for a little bit until we have more sets with characters that are using, the sort of AOT neglected symbols, especially good and evil, but this is another one I will expect to leave its mark competitively sooner or later. They're just being able to build a foundation in your card pool. You understand why the 2 difficulty rider is on there, because they print some crazy high difficulty foundations now. But this, you can definitely do some work for people. All right. Freaking Out. Hungry Dive Bomb. I want to talk about Freaking Out. I think we have an alt character. Hey! So these are pretty cool alts. They are pictures of old action figures, which is great. They have this little texture on them. This one is Raphael from, the Raphael in the trench coat. Just kind of hanging out. I don't know how they... kind of wondering how they took this picture. Maybe Hitch has told the story on a video or something like that. But pretty cool, pretty funny thing they did. There's 5 different of these toy alts, one for each of the turtles and one for the all 4 turtles character, where they're in the fun bus. So that's a pretty cool pull. I said there's a couple of those alt hits per box, so we should see a couple others. I wonder what card I actually want to talk about here. We've talked about, let's just, yeah. Freaking Out, I think this is one of the cards that is in the weekly prize packs, if memory serves. So the either that or it's in the prize support for like regional prize wall promos. I forget which, but I think there's a promo version of this card, and usually the designers pick cards based on things that they think are going to be good and see play. So it kind of makes you look twice at some of these. this is not too crazy, right? This is a 4 difficulty, 4 low 4 with a +1 low block, which is kind of a meh base rate. It has this random mill 1 on it, which makes it interesting for like Leonardo, for instance. Get a little bit of extra oomph on there. But if you're peeking your deck or otherwise doing any sort of manipulation to where you can get this thing on a 3 check, then it's a 4 low 8 that mills you 1. And that is a rate worth pursuing. Right, 4 difficulty, 4 speed for 8 is Battle Lore Release. Obviously, Battle Lore Release also draws a card, but you have to kind of work to get it up to that point. You have to have a bunch of face downs. The game has to be in a certain place. And that card sees lots and lots and lots of play, so 4 difficulty, 4 low 8 potential is something to pay some attention to. The all symbol is a little bit less sparse than good and evil, but still not quite all over the place. Kind of curious to see, if and whenever anyone makes a deck that is using that card. I assume it'll take a lot of top deck peeking for sure. And you never, want to check a 3, so it would have to be something where you can't just throw away whatever you're peeking. It's a bit of a limited space, but clearly there's some confidence that that card's going to be good at some point. Alright, going loud. Balancing all of these angry. We've got some kind of ultra rare in here. We've got Wingnut. Hey, special report. That's definitely one of the ones I was hoping to get. This card is just cool. And speaking of, stacking your deck, I mean, if you really want to, this is probably not the way you would do it. Come on, camera. Doesn't really want to focus on the text here. But it says, response after this attack deals damage, add a card from a discard pile to the top of its owner's deck. So, certainly the level 1 use of this card is to put a 6 check on top of your deck and then go play something spicy. You can also just make your opponent's hand a little bit worse for their next turn or put a bad check on top of their deck if they have no way to get rid of it or draw it or something like that. You might have a form speed way to draw cards to turn this into a tutor. There's a lot of nice little uses for this, and it does have to hit, so it's probably best served as maybe a 2x as the only low attack in your deck with a bunch of highs, or on the flip side, something having 10 low attacks and the other 7 or 8 are just way more threatening than this thing, so this one's just going to get to land. Has EX3, so you can pour some momentum into it if you want. I don't really know what, if anything, people are going to do with this, and again, win or anytime soon, but this set has a lot of pieces like this that it feels like you can do something with. And what that is not exactly obvious or straightforward, and it's certainly not just a big old raw pile of stats. But it feels like the card is going to be useful somewhere someday kind of energy. Right, reciprocate. Roadhog fully equipped horseplay. And more Bebop. Dumbfounded. Very interesting card here in Dumbfounded. I'm kind of surprised it's 3 difficulty and not less than that, but that kind of helps. Some decks might specifically want the higher difficulty foundations for whatever reason. There we go. So 3 difficulty 5 check ignores progressive difficulty. So what that means is that whenever you play this as a form, it's on a 3 difficulty, right? No matter what's in your card pool, it's on a 3 difficulty. There could be 17 cards in your card pool as a 3 difficulty. So this functionally makes it an uber spam, right? It is almost less than a 0 difficulty foundation. It's like a negative difficulty foundation for, on a lot of build turns. Doesn't share with Ymir, which is certainly something to check with a card like this. But a good, if decks are playing 0 difficulty foundations that have almost no text, you could see them just start playing this thing instead in that kind of slot, where it's even less than 0 difficulty. You can play it as the 6th foundation on your build turn, and it's just on a 3. Right, that kind of thing. So this is a card I would expect to see around, probably not everywhere, but people do like running their blank zeros, so sure, there'll be some people running that guy. We have another freaking out. Tackle, discipline, disintegration, or Mega Mutant. Here's our secret rare of the box. Cynthia Ultra Unveiled Villain. We should talk about our secret rare backup. So this is a 5 difficulty backup, so we can't go fetch it with that tutor card for any temporary nonsense. It does have both Evil and Void attuned, so you can play this in an awful lot of different decks. And it just casually makes your rival discard a card every turn. Now, the Tenacious response, if they do attack it despite the elusive keyword, just means they have to attack twice before they get to hit it, really does kind of nothing. Nobody really cares about removing the top 2 cards of their deck in most cases, but it is still, you know, quite powerful to have something out there that's just going to kind of plink away at their hand every turn. You kind of want to get this down early and turn this into sort of a building advantage. There's a decent number of ways on like foundations that blow up or that sort of thing to make your opponent discard 1 card. So if you're not doing a little bit better than that and using this on a couple of attack turns in a row, then you're not getting a great rate out of it. But it is a serious benefit just to say your opponent just has de facto -1 hand size for the rest of the game once this is on the field is very strong. You know, how much play this sort of thing sees probably depends on the power level of the card draw in a given format and how much blocking matters in a given format. You know, right now we have a couple decks near the top that, you know, one of them draws lots of cards and one of them doesn't really intend to block. So probably not that exciting right now. But in time, you know, in a different meta, you could see a discard theme deck leveraging this to good effect. Order backing from HQ. Balanced cohort support. I certainly do not know a lot of these cards by name yet. So I'm kind of having to read these a little bit to decide which ones I'm talking about. There's the Mechazoid themselves. Alright, well, I think this is the first one we've seen. So here's the Mechazoid we talked about in the first pack. You can play up to 8 copies of this thing. It does check a 5. And it is a combination backup asset, which is maybe the most interesting part of this card. Because you have some cards like United Front, and a couple cards in this set, and some cards in the Attack on Titan 3 set, or maybe Attack on Titan 2, that really want you to play a bunch of different card types in your deck. They want to kind of play off of backups in that way. And so having a card that counts as both can be useful to put together with those things if you can, you know, piece the deck around it, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And maybe there needs to be another, you know, card or two that has a payoff for that before that's really, really good. But you know, it's an interesting angle to look at building a deck on. But the card itself just kind of trades to stun 1 on your attacks, which is fine. It can be good, right? It's certainly not bad to make your rival commit a foundation on your attacks. Not the most exciting thing you could be doing with your non-foundation slots in your deck, generally speaking. So you're probably playing this if you're leveraging the, you know, double card type nature of it, or you know, you're building into this Mechazoid theme that I was talking about earlier that I don't think really has the payoffs to make sense. But, you know, I could be wrong. Maybe someone builds it and it's actually, you know, really, really good, right? I have like 8 packs left, something like that. So we've seen our secret, we've seen a few ultra rares. I think we still have some ultra rares to go. We haven't gotten any like slimes yet. I think we're due for one of those. Get a roll. There's Leonardo. Done pretty good. I think I might. I mean, yeah, I believe I've gotten all 4 turtles in this box by virtue of 2 alts in the case of the Chrome and the alt Raphael. So that does score all 4 turtles in the box, which are pretty good. What is neat here? I've heard some people say some pretty nice things about juggling groceries recently, so we'll call this one out. This is Void, which means it has some decks that it might go in. It's nothing special. It's just your classic 1/5 foundation that commits for -2 speed. But, you know, hey, if you're behind, it's a commit for -3 speed, which is a pretty nice condition for the -3 speed. You know, there's some forms of this where the -3 speed is only on, like, a certain symbol or something really narrow. Or, you know, you have a card like Resting Up where it specifically wants a character that commits. This can kind of go in anything, and you know, it helps you usually if you need the help more, right? In terms of going from -2 speed to -3 speed. And just getting some fundamental speed reduction in your deck is generally pretty helpful. Note that this specifically counts foundation, so for Donatello himself, who's probably running a bunch of assets, this is much more often going to be -3 speed, which is a great rate. So I would expect to see this in an awful lot of Donatello decks who's going to be thin on foundations, who's going to want the blocking power that some speed reduction can provide. And then additionally, just kind of around and about in the like, I need to fill out my 1 difficulty spam foundations, and I'd kind of like a little speed hate in my deck, so we'll play a couple copies of this guy. Should do some work. So I got Special Report. I think the other, I want the other 3 difficulty ultra rare as well. For Lifelink would be pretty nice to see. I think we have our slime in this pack. I see some green. Flurry of Blows, out to lunch. Cold and calculating Wingnut. The Slime Superfly Stomp. That is something. That is a very crispy looking Superfly here. Pretty cool card though. A Flying Elbow Drop. We saw just make some waves in Spain in a pony deck. And we have Swooping In. Where are we on this? Let's bring up Swooping In. So, if you haven't seen or heard people going off about this yet, there's 2 things that have people's brains worming about this card. So you can sacrifice to say you can't block with block mod of 3 or greater. There's an attack called Besiege that can only be blocked by block mods of 3 or greater. So if you put Swooping In with Besiege, you have a theoretically unblockable attack if you can figure out how to pile a bunch of damage on it. So that is one thing I would expect is somebody to be trying to do. Maybe incidentally, I don't know what kind of air-fire characters there are that you can put this together on that is exciting or interesting. But that's one angle. The other angle is the Toru 2 character that increases your opponent's block modifiers. And so if you get enough of that going on, you can make anything unblockable, in theory. So a couple combo deck interests with this card. If you're not doing one of those specific things with it, it's a little awkward. Obviously, you know, blocking with expensive blocks isn't something that decks are doing a whole lot of naturally. But you do have some like Rodons that are going out of their way to play high block modifiers that this can punish a little bit. It would be pretty funny to actually catch a Rodon with no cheap block mods, or just like have one of these and make him play around it a little bit. And that is, you know, one impact is you get to put this on the table and make your opponent sort of alter how they're playing out their hands. But because it's there and they can see it, they can go ahead and play around it like that. So pros and cons, right? You don't put it out expecting it to actually work. You just put it out to make them respect it, right? So, you know, I don't know. Again, outside of the decks that have the sort of combo potential in them, I don't know if this one shows up, but it's not completely meritless. Some hold on tight. Oops. I believe that is a silver ultra rare border in here. Some plans, Metalhead. Charge is one. It's a little bit strong. Got a belly bump, an angry flurry. What is cool in here? Let's look at, and I'm not a huge fan of any of these cards, honestly. But we can talk about Virtuous Plan. There's a couple of these black flip things. The other one, the throw, is a little bit disoriented toss is a little bit stronger because it flips the blocked attack immediately, which means it just won't deal damage. This one doesn't flip it until after it resolves, but you do get it on a better stat line move. You get it on a 5 low 4 instead of a 2 mid 4 bad block throw. And flipping blocked attacks after it resolves can be very disruptive, right? You can mess up echo things in particular. It denies momentum. You know, there are some cards that have, you know, unresolved triggers to, you know, clear them from the card pool, pick them up or whatever. It is a low block. It misses a lot of those cards I was talking about. A lot of those are high attacks of different stripes. So in that sense, it's a little bit awkward. This is a pizza move. You might see it in some sort of pizza themed deck. In theory, there's an ultra rare that provides a interesting enough payoff to try to go on in on the pizza thing. I don't know if that's really going to materialize or not, but it's interesting anyway. And so yeah, again, I don't know if this specific one shows up, but if at some point there's a low attack that's very popular that's seeing a bunch of play that this is good against, I imagine this will show up in some sideboards. I say this, and now I'm going to open the better one, the disoriented toss, the better version of this. Goofing off. And is holding all the cards. Brick wall, flurry of blows, gator roll, double meta, 2 metal heads in a row. More wipe out all humans. Daily training and some hang 10. I don't really want to talk about hang 10 because then I have to talk about Deku. This daily training is really cool. This is kind of crazy, actually. So again, good simple things. So that's going to limit it early on, but 2-4 to just straight build something out of your hand. I believe, I don't remember the particulars, but new training method effectively did this. I actually don't remember exactly what the trigger conditions was, and people played the heck out of that card. So I believe that was when you built it, you get to build something from your hand. So you have to do it right then and there. This one comes down and you get to wait until a point at which it matters, where you can drop something by surprise, in particular on defense or offense, or it can go down. You can wait until next turn to just get the extra build. This card's like crazy good, actually, I think. And there's been an ill-fated ult of it going on that loyalty store that you can put those points into that keeps running out of stock, because this card is quite nice. And sooner or later, when good symbol characters get back into the fold, we're going to see a lot of that card. I'm assuming this Guilty Gear set is going to have, at least good evil, if not like all water void, featured a bunch in it, just like Turtles does. I have heal kick, bad attitude, catching air, stealth and cunning, defend the innocent, juggles, superfly, villainous plot, awesome, unarmed, and chair spin. We should talk about chair spin. This is a card that got a big pop when it was previewed. It is kind of insane. Now, one important thing about this is that your rival gets to choose which 2 they ready. So if they have good ones that are already committed, you're just going to have to turn around and commit those back. But nonetheless, a 5 difficulty move that basically gets to decide that your rival's 3 best foundations are out of the picture is very, very, very compelling. The catch to this is if they happen to not have anything committed yet, then this card is blank. So it takes a little bit of finesse and finagling and maybe finding a character that can force something to commit or something like that to play this and rely on it. But, in a lot of cases, if it's a back and forth game of any measure, they're just going to accidentally have a couple committed anyway. And then this thing can really pop off. So this has a symbol with Godzilla. That is certainly the most obvious place where it might show up. You could see, especially if it's going for like a low zone kind of theme, and this is just one of the low attacks that it's running. Outside of that, let's see, Abara could theoretically play this, probably doesn't want to because it's not a great one to put at the end of the stream, but it's a good one to start with. Yeah, we'll see how much this card sees play and does. It's a crazy payoff for sure, and it makes it feel real bad to try to defend yourself with foundation effects right now. But on the flip side, you can just not end up having committed foundations, and then you get to make this card blank. So it's very, very feast famine. We'll see what people think about that when they build their decks. 2 packs left. How are we on time? Pretty much the usual. These things usually go 40-50 minutes. Somewhere in there. Hold on tight. It looks like we have our possibly another alt in here, or just a very bright character. Lead some other. Oh, just ultra rare. Hey, United in Battle. All right, cool. That is one that I'm happy to see and happy to talk about. This card, there's a couple of these like 4 difficulty attacks with a lot of turtles on them. It can be a little hard to tell them apart, but this one in particular is kind of neat. It has another build foundation from your hand trigger, so we can do that with Daily Train and with this. And it draws a card when it hits. So both of those are on hit. Because it's a response, you have to get the trigger. You have to, get the after this attack deals damage to get both parts of this. But if you do, you get an awful lot, right? You get a free build a foundation. You get to draw a card. Pretty enticing. Pretty good to mix in with a deck that, again, either this is your only high attack and they're like am I really going to hold high blocks just to stop this thing? Or it's part of an overload strategy, or a strategy with a lot of on-hits, a lot of things that, that makes them feel like they have to try to full block everything, and they really just can't do that, and this is one that they let through. This one, I expect another good symbol card that I expect to show up somewhere at some point in a deck that is good. Alright, final pack. I imagine we're done with ultra rares at this point. We may get another alt, probably not. We can't complain. We got a chrome and extra figure character. I feel some stickiness. One of the things about these packs is that some of the alts get like a little bit stuck to the character card that they're behind. And I feel like that might be happening here. Oh yeah, there's something here. Ah, it's an alt Leatherhead. Alright, we have Mollywop, Family, Above the City, and Reactive Kick. So anything here I want to talk about more than Leatherhead? Probably not. We talked about the ally damage card already. We didn't get a Pizza Party, which is kind of the interesting. There's a bunch of like 5 difficulty stun 2 modeled cards in this set that all feel kind of fringy, but one of them might be good. Anyway, here's Leatherhead. Here's the alt Leatherhead. A nice little texture, glossy. A little bit of extra foiling on the goggles there. This is another character that people really like from the set. A little bit more... Well, I guess Donatello is also built around E, right? But this one wants to stuff your rival's card pool and do a bunch of payoffs for that. Has fire and water, right? There was that fire attack earlier where they're like, well, it's hard to stuff their card pool if you're not also water. Well, Leatherhead gets to do that. You get 1 free stuff, just from your first form. You get 2 if they happen to build a lot. The trick with this is that you have to discard a card to get the payoff on that response. And defensively, how many cards your rival has in their card pool before you really need to start reducing damage can vary. There are some cards that are clearing their card pool or looping stuff or something like that. But if it comes down to it, there's a number of scenarios where that response can be quite strong in terms of damage reduction. And then offensively, if you're turning this into 3-4 damage if you're working hard enough. The big thing is just keeping your cards supplied, right? You want to run both lots of pool flood and lots of card draw just to make this character work on a fundamental level, which is a bit of a tall order. But it does, since you're drawing cards anyway, it helps, solve the 6 hand size problems that a character like this might run into. Kind of interested to see how Leatherhead ends up doing. And, as always, current meta may not be the meta for something like this, but at some point someone's going to have their, version 10 Leatherhead list and make some waves with it, possibly. Alright, and that is a wrap for our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles booster box opening. Any box with a chrome is a fantastic box. And I got a few ultra rares that I wanted as well. Got the couple nice alts, alt Leatherhead, so an alt of a good character, and the toy alt of Raphael. But the big get for sure. Good old number 77 here. So we'll call the video there. I hope you enjoyed this. Good luck with your pulls. If you are still going to be ripping any boxes of this set, you go pick some up. And yeah, have a good one. Take care.